let's start with Ron about how should book publicists used to pitching to conventional media, how do they need to, or do they need to tailor or change the way they approach you to get blogged about or have the books blogged about?
I think a little bit. I mean, I'm in kind of a sort of a weird buffer zone because my blog has evolved over the years, and because I've had a long enough relationship with a lot of publicity departments that even before Media Bistro hired me to write about the publishing industry, I had acquired this sort of semi-pro status. But I think one of the basic things is that, you know, it's not enough to just sort of take a look at the blog and say like, oh, this is a blog about that. You know, it's about books. I can send them all the books that I'm doing. You really have to sort of like spend some time to look at what they're writing, to really get a feel for their voice and for their affinities. And then when you approach them, you know, at least initially, don't just send like your boilerplate press releases. You know, talk to the person about, you know, oh, I've come across your blog. I see you're doing with these things. And if you have projects that are relevant at that moment, you know, mention them. And if you don't have a project that's relevant at that moment, but you think, you know, you expect that you will, you know, ask them. It's like, you know, would you be interested in seeing things that come up that have to do with this? For the majority of book bloggers, I think, are not in this sort of like semi-pro status that I have. And for a long time, I think there was this sort of like almost punk rock mentality about like, you know, we're not corporate media. You can't treat us like corporate media. And so any sort of like, you know, corporate style marketing thing met with this kind of like knee-jerk rejection. I think, you know, it's eased up a little bit. But I think it's still very important to realize that you're dealing with individuals, not with institutions, and to act accordingly.
I think that's a good point. Fauzi, do you have anything to say?
I do, very much so. I can't agree more with Ron. You know, online publicity is the most time-consuming, labor-intensive work because that's how you have to do it. You literally have to do it one person at a time. And I was meeting with an agent recently, and you know, I was telling him this process that you have to literally pitch one blogger, one website at a time. And he goes, "You don't really." And I said, "I swear." And he goes, "No, you don't." Then we literally sat across, and I'm like, "I'm telling you, this is how it's done." And he couldn't fathom it because he came out of a, you know, publishing. He was a publisher, and so he comes out with that mindset that you do this mass mailing, you get a press release, you stick it in every book, you send 500 books out there, and hope something sticks. You know, that's the process. So suddenly to tell publicists, yeah, no more mass mailing. You know, you actually have to build relationships, and you have to talk to people, and do it one at a time. It's incredibly labor-intensive and time-consuming, but so much more rewarding. And definitely, you know, you can see that when you have that relationship and you have that rapport, people will respond to what you're saying. And this is a really key issue here. And one of the things you asked, Suzanne, is that, is there a difference in how you approach them? You know, I still see publishing houses sending these huge, long press releases. Please stop doing them. I mean, if you're reaching out to online media, don't send them a press release. And please don't send them "see attached." That's just, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
When was the last time someone opened that? It's just not happening. You know, I tell my staff that if you don't get their attention in that, you know, the little window that opens up for your, just the preview window, if you don't have their attention in that time, it's done. Don't think they're going to keep scrolling down and, you know, try to get you to get to the point. Get to the point quickly. So don't use press releases. I think that's a really key difference between traditional media and online media.